Welcome to episode 3 of season 3. We are so excited that you've joined us for this episode. We are talking about
Oops, I did it again. Yep, that's all I'm going to say because the rest doesn't make sense. But we're talking about mistakes.
mistakes. Okay, I've made them. Julie's made them. We've all made them. And yeah, if you've been a manager or an HR professional for any length of time, you've probably made many, and that is okay. That's actually what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why making mistakes is not the end of the world and how, if you handle them the right way, they can actually advance your career. And my personal favorite part, strengthen your relationships with your team.
Indeed. I wrote about this in a recent Jewels of Wisdom, so some of you may have seen it, but I mentioned in that column how mistakes can either become a defining moment for people from which they never recover, or they can be turning points that mark a new trajectory for your career. And of course, we have stats to back all of this up and lots of good tips. But first, we have to get to the WINE of the episode. So I'm going to turn it back over to Trish.
Actually, Jules, before we even get there, I have one more thing, and that is that we have some shout outs to do.
Yay!
We have some new paid members on our Patreon account since our last episode. So, big shout outs to Lori Drum, Stephanie Frederick, and Deborah Palmer.
And
Whoop,
those
whoop.
members, I know, it's so exciting. And those members who joined our whole damn bottle membership tier will be receiving an etched Wine with HR wine glass, which I have right here to show everybody. Put my hand behind it so you can see it. So these are so pretty. They're sort of sparkly. You probably can't tell that looking at it, but they're lovely. So anybody who gets the whole damn bottle membership will get one of these mailed to them. So Lori and Stephanie, yours will be coming soon. And also, exciting stuff. We have some wine merch. So this is a sweatshirt that I just got the sample of. So how fun is this? You can see the little logo here, and then there's a big one on the back, if you can see that. We also are going to have some other style hoodies and hats and aprons and bags and all sorts of fun stuff. So that we will be releasing all of that in June. So coming up in just a couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that. So exciting.
So excited. I want a hat so badly for those days when I'm
Oh,
just like,
yes, we
oh
have
boy.
hats. Yes, we have hats. So we will get there. So, okay, back to the wine. Trish, what are you drinking?
I am drinking one I'm pretty sure everybody knows. I am drinking Decoy.
Ah,
Uh,
yes.
yes, a great standard wine. You can find it everywhere. It's one of those that is also very consistent. I'm actually drinking a Merlot, which I know I don't normally do, but I am up at my parents' house. And I was like, oh no, mom, I forgot to get wine. And she's like, ta-da. So, of course, she has a wonderful bottle for me. And I have to say, what do you think, Jules? Is this not amazing?
The picture is perfect.
Isn't it so great? I love how it's like pouring on my head.
Yes.
Our amazing, amazing friend Sarah actually did that for my mom as a gift. So,
That's so cool. Very cool.
yeah. And then check out my glass for today. Love you more. The end. I win. Yeah, it's a glass I gave to my mom a little while ago, so I was like, oh, this is perfect for today.
Nice. Nice.
I don't, I don't really have anything to say about Decoy because everybody knows it's awesome. So thus, sharing everything else. Tell us about
Yes.
what you're drinking, Jules.
All right. So I am drinking, I know this is going to be a shocker, an Italian red. So it's there's some glare there. I'm not certain how to pronounce it. It's either lecheche or leseche, but it's probably ceche because usually you pronounce the C's in Italian. It's a rosso, so just a red blend from northern Italy. and I haven't actually even taken a sip yet. So hold, please.
Oh,
Oh, it smells lovely, though. Mm. Fruity but
I'm
peppery. You know how much I love that.
I'm feeling a little jealous here.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Well, I'm just going to savor that for a second. So this is why I love Italian reds because they tend to be dry, which I like dry. Um, they tend to be smooth, so not super tannicky. And then, but they still have a lot of flavor. So this one, it goes down very nicely, but then you get all this like raspberry, blackberry on the end with like a little bit of pepper and maybe some leather notes in there. So it's very nice because even though it is May 21st and we should be well into spring, it is rainy, dreary, and gross here today. So I needed something to give, like, warm me up a little bit.
I get that. Yeah. I don't know what happened. It's like someone was like, "Oh, hey, spring, go back to sleep."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I wish it
pretty
would stop. I mean, I don't want to go straight to 95-degree weather either, but,
fair.
I don't want
Fair.
to go backwards.
No, it's just been nuts the last. And for all of our listeners out there, just know we are thinking about you if you are in one of the areas that's been
Yes.
impacted by the crazy tornadoes or the thunderstorms. I know up by us there where we had some tornadoes hit, some thunderstorms, people are without power. Just know that our thoughts are definitely with you all. And our suggestion is always, of course, wine heals everything.
Mm. Amen.
All right, back to our WHINE of the day, turning those mistakes into opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, I get to take this one to do some stats because,
Ooh.
again, we know this girl, stat girl. All right, so some of the first stats I have for you are from an article called Owning Your Mistakes, Why It Is a Mark of Leadership. And of course, as always, we're going to have a link to the articles in our show notes. But let's look at some of those really interesting stats. There's a study of 3,100 employees in 13 countries, and it revealed that the largest gap in leadership behavior, now this is between what matters to employees and then what is perceived to be consistently demonstrated by supervisors, is admitting when they're wrong. All right, so this is what we're talking about. That's a huge, huge problem. I mean, I'm sure you can relate to it in your organization. 81% of employees considered it important or very important for leaders to admit their mistakes. Only 41% felt that their bosses consistently did so. So 81% consider it important, and 41 say that it's a consistent thing. Researchers also found that a leader's willingness, and I love this, to admit that they're wrong is the top tested behavior when it comes to those things that positively impact employees' job satisfaction and their intention to stay in a job. So I think
Yeah.
those are just great things to start with.
Yes, absolutely. It shows you how important it is. And we know that owning your mistakes can be challenging because nobody likes to admit they made a mistake. And especially if it's something that you're embarrassed about. So we're not just talking about mistakes that you might make related to a project or your actual work output. We're talking about also mistakes you might make in your leadership style. Like perhaps you didn't handle a conversation very well. Maybe you got defensive when an employee challenged you on something. Maybe you crossed a line and engaged in some gossip and you probably shouldn't have done that as a leader or things like that. So those ones, I think it's even harder to go back to your employees and say, you know what, I didn't handle that particularly well.
And I'm singing your song again.
Yeah. Oh,
Oops,
oops,
I
I did it
did
again.
it again. Hopefully,
Um,
you're not doing it again and again.
yes, yes. Hopefully,
Right.
you're learning from your mistakes.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we're going to talk about. But I just wanted to make it clear we weren't just talking about work related, like processes, projects, that sort of thing, like directly related to the work. We're also talking about mistakes you might make as a leader. So even those like emotional mistakes or just behavioral mistakes that you might make as you're learning your way as a leader. So, but there are a lot of benefits to owning your mistakes, and Trish and I are going to go through some of those. So, I'm going to start with just that it can create a sense of safety for your team, which you might not really think about. But if you are willing to admit that you made a mistake, that creates a safe space for your employees to do the same thing. And it also models the behavior you want them to use when they make a mistake. So instead of trying to hide it, or cover it up or minimize it, if they've seen you say, hey, you know what? I screwed that up. Let's figure out how to not do that again in the future, then they're more likely to repeat that same behavior.
I, Julie, I'm going to take that and run with it. I'm going to go with the builds trust and credibility. Think about that. I know at first most of us think that it does the opposite, but when you really think about it, if you admit a mistake, if you own it, then people say, "Oh, I can trust that person," right? I know that they are going to be willing to say in the future or about anything really that, you know what, I messed up. And when you do that, again, it goes to credibility. When you have questions in the future, when they have questions in the future, if they're worried about, again, themselves growing or sharing something with you, just in the fact that you owned up to a mistake and said, look, I messed that up, it really does give you this I think this amazing opportunity to be credible because people in the future, when you say, I didn't mess up, or I did this right, or I believe you, I trust you, and I will listen to you in every single way, I think that your credibility grows with your employees.
I agree. And just for reference, and again, we'll put the links in the show notes, but most of these benefits come from the study and the article that Trisha already mentioned once. That's from Glasshammer. And then also, LinkedIn had a really good article, Eight Benefits of Admitting Your Mistakes. So again, we'll put the links to both of those articles in the show notes. But kind of just piggybacking off what Trish said, a lot of these are interrelated, but admitting your mistakes can also improve team morale. One of the reasons it does that is because it creates a non-blaming culture. And so, again, if employees feel safe to admit their mistakes, then it can also lead to a more collaborative work environment because they're more likely to feel comfortable saying to their peers as well as to you as the boss that, hey, you know what? I got this wrong. What do we need to do to fix it? How do we get it right? And they're more likely to engage in those kinds of conversations, which is going to lead to potentially innovation, better collaboration, better team cohesiveness, all of those good things we always try to foster with our teams.
And Jules, I'm going to go off article for a minute and because I'm thinking just based on what
It
you just
wouldn't
said.
be us if you didn't.
Very good point. Very good point. I'm just thinking about this time when I had, again, it was very early in my career. It actually was before I even went to law school, and I was working on this project, and I got reamed, and I mean, wow, it. I have never felt like okay. I was like, I want to quit. I'm gonna quit. I'm done. I can't deal with this. Like, I don't understand. And later on that afternoon, my boss came back to me and said, I was wrong. you were right. And I had no business, number one, speaking to you that way. But number two, like, I need you to know that the way you were doing it was correct. And what I was trying to do was wrong. Like,
Wow.
even now, yeah, even now when I think about it, do you know how much respect I had for that person? And I tell you what, I had his back from that point forward. In anything and everything that we did, I knew he had my back and I always had his. And I think that that cleared the way. And when people would ask me like, "Why are you so sure?" And I'm like, "Well, let me share this story with you." And they were like, "No way. He did that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so I just think that it kind of goes to everything that we're talking about, but I wanted to share kind of like a personal kind of a feel good story about it so that people understand that, we're talking about like how it can increase learning and growth and trust and all that, but it's the feel goods too. And you
Hmm.
can never underestimate the feel goods and how that will help people. Again, we always talk about feel engaged and want to stay. And so I just wanted to throw that one out there because whatever you said triggered it. And I was like, ooh, I need to share this.
Yeah, and also sharing a personal story. The other leaders that I have always really admired are the ones that when you go to them and you have screwed up, they don't react in the way that the person you were just sharing did initially. Like they don't ream you out. They say, okay, well, let's figure out what to do about it. Like I've always really appreciated that. I remember going to one of the partners in one of my law firms because I had forgotten to file something under seal, which is something that you sometimes have to do in certain court cases if there's like medical documents or things like that. And I had done it with every other document we had filed, but this one was sort of like a last minute thing. And it was, I just forgot. I just forgot to do it. And I realized it pretty quickly. And I went to the partner and I was like, I owned up to it. I was like, this is totally my fault. I don't know why I didn't remember to do it, but I didn't remember to do it. And I think it was, of course, on a Friday. So we couldn't do anything over the weekend, and we had a pain in the butt opposing counsel who we knew was going to make a big deal out of it and, all these other things. But that partner just said, okay, all right, let's just make a plan. Like he had worked with me long enough that he knew I obviously didn't do it intentionally. I didn't do it because I was incompetent. It was simply a mistake. But I really appreciated him not reaming me out because he could have,
Yeah. Yeah.
he could have screamed at me, he could have yelled at me. But just like recognizing that what's done is done. And that was a great learning lesson for me because when then I became, people's boss, and they would come to me with mistakes, I always remembered that and would try to model that behavior because I knew how much it meant to me to just have somebody say, like, okay, mistakes happen. Let's figure out what to do about it and not go through that whole making me feel like crap thing.
Right. Right.
Because trust me, I had already made myself feel like crap enough. I didn't need somebody else to do it. So I think that that's also part of what we're talking about is when you show that you can own up to your mistakes, again, it allows people the safety to come to you and say that they screwed up, but it also gives you the maturity to realize, well, yeah, obviously I make mistakes, so you're going to make mistakes, and we don't have to make this a huge thing. We just have to deal with it. And you can
Yeah.
respond in a better fashion.
That goes to one of the parts in the article, right? It clears that path for finding a solution. Okay, what's done is done. You can't change it. So let's focus on fixing it. Like your example, I think is a perfect example of that. Just like, okay, you know what? Can't change it. What are we going to do from here on
Yep.
out? And I think that like, people often say it's how you react to circumstances, right? That really defines who you are and who you are as a leader, especially. So this is your opportunity then to show people like, hey, this is what I'm about. Now let's try to fix it.
Yep. Yeah, and it really does make you look like a stronger leader, and people view you as a stronger, more effective leader. That's one of the things that's in the article. It enhances leadership effectiveness because people who are willing to show humility and vulnerability and saying, I screwed up, and even more so if they then look at their team and say, I need your help to fix it. That again, as Trisha already said, can help build team cohesiveness and trust and credibility. But you're also seen as a more effective leader, and that might seem counterintuitive because, again, oftentimes our first instinct is to bury the mistake or cover it up. And we all know the phrase about how the cover up is always worse than the crime. And we've seen it time and time again. It really is true. So if you can stop yourself from thinking that and say, no, 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 there doesn't need to be a cover up because everybody makes mistakes. It's in how you handle the mistake that really matters.
Fully agree. And I think that goes, again, all of these, like you've already said, hand in hand, in hand, in hand. When you do try to cover it up, or when you do say overreact, and again, look, I understand that we all might overreact here and there, but it is that owning again of the, okay, I overreacted. Let's take a step back. I apologize. Let's really focus on, look, we all make mistakes, and where do we go from here? Because if you don't take that step back, if you don't talk to them about it, here's what's going to happen. Your employees are going to hide that kind of thing from you in the future. And then you're at risk of repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again because you're not learning from them. And that I think is one of the biggest takeaways for me from all of this is like, look, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. And think about like even in your personal relationships outside of the workplace, you make a mistake or you get in an argument or something, you talk about it and you figure out what you can learn from that so that you don't repeat it in the future. It goes to the same thing here. We want to encourage our employees. We ourselves should think about, okay, am I going to make this mistake again? And the answer is yeah, you will if you don't address it, if you don't share.
Agreed. So that leads in beautifully to some just considerations when you have made a mistake and things to think about before you do own up to your mistake. Again, we definitely want you to own your mistake. But before you talk to your team about it, there's some things to think about. So one is controlling your emotions and managing your own reaction. And again, sometimes you don't do a good job of that, and that might be part of the mistake, right? That might be part of what you end up apologizing for. I have certainly had conversations. I had one with Brenna not too long ago. I was having a challenging week for whatever reason. And we had a meeting, and I later said to her, you know what? I was not my best self that day. I'm really sorry about that. I was a little bit shorter than usual. I was, a little bit prickly, and none of that was her fault. It just was, I was just not my best self that day. But I felt it was important to apologize for that because I acknowledged that I didn't show up like I normally do that day. And that it had nothing to do with her. Like that was the most important message. It wasn't anything she did. It wasn't anything, you know, truly work related. It was all about me and what was going on in my life that day. And again, I think that that's important. So I had to apologize more for my behavior than anything else that particular time because I didn't manage my reactions particularly well that day. So you want to, first of all, get better at that. And Trisha has a great class on emotional intelligence that's available in our online courses. And we teach that in our manager boot camp. And we'll probably do an episode on that if we haven't already, because emotional intelligence is so important. But as you improve your emotional intelligence, you might screw up here and there. But even before, so let's say you've screwed up, and maybe you didn't act the way you should have. Before you address your team about that, you want to get those emotions under control and better understand where they came from, know what you are going to say to your team, and what the message is that you want them to walk away with.
I, Julie, yeah, I can relate to exactly what you're talking about. I was teaching a course out in Texas recently, and I did the same thing. We're in the middle of the course. These are people that I am instructing, and there was something that someone said that was a little confrontational, and I reacted. Instead of remembering what my role was, I reacted. And then about 5 minutes later, I was like, you know what? I need to stop the class. I stopped the class and I looked at her and I said, I need to apologize to you. Like, I reacted from an emotional perspective, and I want you to know that this is a safe place. You can continue to share. I don't know that she heard the message, but I felt like it was important for me to do that. And so that's something that I think we also need to explain to our listeners, is that people may not be ready to hear your message. And so you really need to think about the timing of that as well. Because I started thinking about that afterwards. It wasn't her fault that she maybe wasn't ready, right? Maybe my timing was too quick, but all of a sudden I panicked because I was like, oh, I think I just reacted from a place I shouldn't have. So, think about the timing, and think about, your need to make sure that you're sharing when you're wrong, or when you are apologizing, or if you have overreacted. And be aware of, and this is a perfect this again is from the article, but it goes to exactly what I'm saying. Be aware of your own personal blind spots, right? You may make an assumption about why a mistake was made based on these blind spots that you have. So step back, take some time to breathe, and use that as an opportunity, number one, to learn something about yourself, but maybe even get some perspectives from your team.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think another thing I was thinking about when you were sharing that story, Trisha, is even if the person who you responded to wasn't ready to hear your message, it was also important for everybody else in the class to hear it.
Huge.
You know,
And that's why, exactly, exactly.
yeah, because they needed to see that you were somebody who could be trusted, who could acknowledge that, you may not have responded as you normally would have, or as you quote unquote should have. I hate that phrase, but you know what I mean.
Right.
um and so that's also important. And I think, we've talked about this with respect to other situations, but that's another thing to think about. Even if you're and it won't always be appropriate, but even if your interaction was with one team member only, you may want to share portions of what happened with your whole team, because number one, people talk and it may have gotten around. you
Yep.
know yeah, so if it's going to become the elephant in the room, then you should probably just address it with everybody. But
Agreed.
also, I think that in some ways shows an even higher level of emotional intelligence and leadership to say, hey, you know what? You may not even know I made this mistake, but I'm still going to tell you about it because I think it's important that you understand. I recognize that I wasn't where I should have been this day. And I want you to feel comfortable admitting that as well. And that can be really hard. So, again, it's not always going to be appropriate, because depending on what the situation is, maybe it would rile people up more, or it might create more drama if you shared it with everybody, or maybe it's sensitive. So it really should stay between you and that one person. But there are situations where, as a leader, it is important to address the entire team.
I think. Hey, and by the way, guys, we are not at all excusing bad behavior. You know,
No.
Julie and I always say, like, no, we do not ever excuse bad behavior. And we talk about the fact that, when you're talking about behavior, this does go to performance. This is not what we're saying. We're not saying that someone can go, oh, well, I said this and I was just kidding, or I said this right. There are parameters around this, but please understand that we are not trying to excuse poor behavior at all. We're simply saying
Right.
if there is maybe an emotional response to something that was said, or if you bring in perhaps something from outside the workplace into the workplace, and then you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, then you have the guts to say it, or have the grace to allow someone else to say it. So this goes both ways. We're looking at leaders and managers and employees all here. We need to have the grace to realize that, people are human and they try not to bring in their drama from the outside, but sometimes it happens. So,
Yeah,
little
and
caveat both ways.
yes, and also we're not saying there aren't going to be consequences to you messing up or to
Bingo.
somebody else messing up. This is just in addition to those consequences, it's important that you own those mistakes. So I can give you another example that recently came up for a client. I'm going to make it kind of general though, because I don't want to, you know,
Of course.
share too many details. But this particular manager engaged in some gossip, turned out not to be true, about an employee to other employees. So definitely crossed a line, particularly as a leader. That's unacceptable. Should not have done that. Was called out on it because it came to light. Was very remorseful. Was very worried that this would ruin this person's career or like change how upper leadership saw this person. And this is kind of where that, well, it can be a defining moment depending on what happens next. you know,
Yeah.
Depending on how you handle this, it could ruin your career in the sense that you're not going to get promoted anywhere, or it could really be that turning point where people say, wow, yeah, this person made a mistake, but they handled it so well that
Right.
we can trust them to do that moving forward and in higher levels of leadership. So part of the consequence was you have to apologize to your whole team,
I
to
love
everybody
it.
you told this to the person you gossiped about, and to anybody else who was impacted by this. So there were a couple people outside the team that had also kind of been involved. So that was part of the consequence. And it was like, if you are not willing to do that, then, the other option is you probably need to start looking for a new job. So the consequences can still be severe, but they can also be part of what we were thinking about as the group trying to figure out what the quote unquote punishment should be, was what is going to have the biggest impact. And we thought that's going to show us how serious this person is about being a leader, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, Trisha and I are not saying there aren't consequences for behaving badly, or there aren't, but there are also times where you're just not your best. Like you might have reacted in defensiveness or anger or frustration or whatever the case may be. And it's nothing that requires discipline or anything like that. But again, it's just about owning the fact that you didn't show up the way you wanted to.
I think that goes right back to what you said at the beginning. Like, we're not just talking about like mistakes that, oh, I didn't do this procedure properly or I didn't do this. I think that shows that really this can happen in any realm, and turning those into those learning opportunities that we mentioned, and focusing on, again, as we've already stated, but fixing the problem. Like, really look at it and see, like, was this something that was an outside influence? Did I allow something from an external event or something impact me? Or was my frustration actually caused by something that was going on within the workplace? One of the things they mentioned in the articles was like, was there a timeline that was too short, or was there frustrations because something else didn't get done, or that the workload was too high, or maybe that you feel either you as the leader or one of your I hate to use the word subordinates, one
I
of
know.
your employees, like it just is
Yes.
such an awful word. One of your employees maybe was frustrated because they felt that they were doing more of the work than others. But like really and truly trying to understand where that came from then allows you to fix it and move forward. And you as a leader grow, they as an employee grow. And we always say, like, people model the behavior that they see. And if you are doing that, Julie gave her perfect example of how she tried to do that with people once she became the leader. And I think that it's a great idea for all of us to consider.
Yeah, and this is very similar. This process that we're talking about is very similar to the feed forward method that Trisha and I have talked about on other episodes, which we both love. And that's a feedback method, but it's kind of the same thing. It's okay, so we identify the problem, which is whatever the mistake was that was made. And then we try to together figure out how do we move forward? How do we keep this from happening moving forward? And you can do that with both the behavioral sort of situations as well as if it's related to a particular work project. So if, as Trisha just gave the example, maybe the timeline was too short, maybe one of the steps moving forward is, hey, we have to start this process a lot earlier. So instead of only giving ourselves 4 weeks, we need to give ourselves 8 weeks. So we need to start planning earlier. So then you've got those sort of timelines figured out, and you can avoid the like sort of rushed feeling that led to everybody feeling frustrated or not being able to accomplish the goal. And with behavioral issues, if we take like the gossip thing and somebody is admitting, you know what, yeah, I engaged in gossip and I shouldn't have done that, particularly as a leader, how do we stop each other from doing that? Like, what are some code words we can say when we start engaging in gossip to remind each other that we said we weren't going to do this, And you could even
Love
make
it.
it something sort of funny, like we,
French toast.
right, French toast, or um, uh, my supper club for a while there, when we would start talking politics, if somebody is straight into politics, which is a pressure cooker, let's just put it that way, in
Yeah.
most conversations, somebody would just be like, Little House on the Prairie. Like just like that was the safe words. We're Little House on the Prairie, like so you can make it kind of fun. But you can literally apply this process to anything, whether it's more behavioral or whether it's actually like performance based or work based. But again, it's sort of about bringing everybody into it so that it's a team solution, even if it was an individual problem.
Julie, I think that one of the other things that we have to talk about based on exactly what you just said is that glass hammer, what they pointed out about women versus men. Because I think that while we are focused on the benefits and how it can help with careers, it's really important to talk about the emotional impact that it can have on women, and then like men, and how we perceive these differences so that we as leaders can better understand what our employees are going through. So can I throw it to you first before I follow up with, because I think I know where you're going to go with it. I just want to see if I'm right.
Sure. Yeah. So, we as women, it's just we've kind of been conditioned this way, and men have been conditioned other ways. So we're not like trying to place any blame on anybody here.
Not
But
at all.
women have been taught to apologize all the time. Think about how often you start an email with "Sorry for the delay," I do that all the time. And nowadays I try to stop myself and delete that because usually it hasn't been that much of a delay. And what the heck am I apologizing for? Because I'm getting back to you as soon as I could, like, but we have this tendency to apologize for everything. So somebody says something that sounds even remotely like a criticism, and we're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Whatever. So we want to be cognizant of the fact that we have that tendency and not fall into the habit of habitually apologizing for everything, particularly when it is not your fault, or you don't really have anything to apologize for. But also, from another perspective, if you're always apologizing, it makes it harder to accept a real one. Because if you're always saying you're sorry, then people are like, well, she says that all the time. So does she really mean it? So it makes your true apologies more sincere if you're not apologizing for everything that happened around you when you may not have had control over most of that.
It's crazy. As a woman, I don't realize how often I say, I'm sorry," and like even like in my professional life or in my personal life, and my husband will go, "Why are you saying you're sorry?" I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's just the words that were I'm taught to start with.
Hmm.
And so, I owe that to him. That's one of the things that I think that he's been so great about, like helping me not just as a human, but also it's helped me, I think, as a leader and as I'm working with various women that I work with. But I also want to flip that around and focus on our men. Typically, you do move on faster. Again, this is just we're talking typically. But I also want to say that that doesn't mean that for people out there that are thinking, oh, well, they don't care or they're detached, they're just able to move on. That doesn't mean that they don't actually own it. It's just a difference in how we react, a difference in how we have been raised, a difference in how we learn, and it's also just a difference in just modeling our behavior. And so I want to say to everyone out there, like, please don't just assume that because someone seems to be moving on very quickly or seeming that they're detached, it doesn't mean that their apology isn't heartfelt. It doesn't mean that they don't feel it. It's just that maybe like some of us, they don't just beat themselves up on it. They say, I screwed up, I owned it, and now I'm going to move forward. Which, somewhere in the balance of those two things, I think is the healthy answer. Own it, think about it, try to improve, but don't beat yourself up.
Yes, yes. And on that note, I think the self-blame, I do think women tend to do that a little bit more. Again, not saying that men don't, just that women have a tendency to do that more. And so when they make a mistake, and this goes to anybody who might think this, male, female, however you define yourself. But what we don't want you to do is think, I made a mistake, therefore I am bad. It's not a character reflection. It
Right.
is, unless you continue to repeat the mistake and never learn from it, then it might be a character reflection. But
Cheers.
if you, yeah, but if you make a mistake and you care deeply and you want to fix it, then we don't want you to spend a ton of time telling yourself why you're the worst person on the planet because you made this mistake. Again, we want you to focus on how do you fix it? How do you move forward? And not engage in that self-blame because that's counterproductive. It doesn't allow you to move forward. It holds you back. And one other thing that I will say, as a woman, again, going back to our tendency to apologize for everything, um, that is one space where even if you are not in a leadership position, you can be a leader with other female employees. So I often find myself saying that to people when they start a conversation. And again, it does tend to be the women, and they will immediately say, "I'm sorry," and I will say, "Stop." there's nothing to apologize for here, because again, sometimes it'll be like, um, oh, I'm sorry, it took me 5 minutes to reply to your email. What? Like, I realize you have other things to do, like
Uh,
I'm not
yeah.
sitting here with a timer. Like, oh my God, it has been 4 minutes and 37 seconds, and Trisha has not responded to me yet. How dare she? The first words out of her mouth better be, I'm sorry. Like so, but again, we're sort of conditioned to do that. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't get back to you immediately. Expect you to get back to me immediately. And so I think it's really important as a leader when you see, again, any gender, however anybody defines themselves, um, who is responding that way, to point it out gently and just say, hey, you don't need to apologize. I understand you've got things to do. I'm not timing you. I'm not, like, it's perfectly acceptable for you to not respond, whatever the expectation is, within, now if you go 24 hours, maybe I'll be like, that seems weird. But, but I think, like, being cognizant of how your team members are responding and what they seem to think the expectation is, and
Yeah.
correcting that when you can, so that it doesn't lead to problems down the line.
Well, and I think too that you're helping people grow at that point, right? You're
Hmm.
you're showing them like, listen, as you already said, apologies need to be really saved for those things that you need to apologize for so that they mean more. And also, by the way, we're all human. We all have things to do. So why would you apologize for, a 2 hour delay or I mean, unless
Right.
it's they know that you're waiting for this information that has to be done and you have a deadline of noon. Okay, maybe then an apology is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in general, and I do the same thing.
Hmm.
I've written an email and I was like, why did I apologize for that? It was like 3 hours ago. I am teaching a course. I'm in the middle of doing this. I'm in the middle of doing that. So like, nope, delete, delete, delete.
Yep. Yep. Also, just
Growth.
on that note, because it made me think of it, but this is sort of another generalization, but women in emails tend to use a lot of exclamation points. I know I do.
I'm the worst.
So
Worst.
I always have to go back through my emails and be like, okay, we're going to have to cut most of these out.
I
And sometimes
don't to
it's
you.
painful. Sometimes
If
it's
I'm
painful
emailing
because you're
you, no
like,
way.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
painful because you're like, no, I don't want this to come across as,
Yeah.
stern or something like that. But it's just kind of funny, So we got to, again, to the extent that you as a woman can mentor other women to sort of watch out for those things, because they are things that can be read a particular way by certain people, as being seen negatively if you use too many exclamation points or if you're apologizing all
Right.
the time. So they're nice things to point out, and also, make yourself relatable, saying like, I do this all the time. I had to teach myself, again, using that same modeling behavior that can be really impactful to a younger woman, as they're kind of making their own way through their career path.
Yeah.
We got to do what we can. We got to build each other up.
I love it. I love it. Any opportunity that you can take to build up anyone in your
Yep.
organization, anyone that you mentor, any friends, anyone that you come in contact with. If you can make them smile, take the opportunity and do it.
Yes, I think that's a
That's
great
my
final.
PSA.
I like it. I think that's a great final thought
The
to
more
end
you
on.
know.
The more you know. Yes. Do do do. The little rainbow goes shooting across. Okay. So anyway, back to it. Trisha, how's your wine treating you?
You know what? I'm actually really enjoying it. Again, I'm not usually a Merlot person, because, well, I don't know, I prefer cabs. But this one is good, and I'm assuming it's just because it's decoy.
Yeah.
It's, and it just has a little bit of a dryness that I would prefer, versus, and again, I know Merlots are not that sweet, but for me, they tend to seem sweeter than cabs. Um, but this one has, like, I don't know what it is, but it's like hitting me on the tip of my tongue, and it's delicious, and like you said earlier, it's perfect for a cold day. And so I'm really looking forward to going downstairs and splitting the rest of the bottle with my mama.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I am loving this one. I think I'm definitely adding it to the library. Uh, and interestingly, I have been having trouble with reds lately just because of really sure what it is, but it might be something that's going on with my esophagus or whatever the thing is. But sometimes I've just been having a little bit of trouble with reds where they upset my stomach.
Oh,
Um, and so I haven't been drinking them as much, which people might have noticed. I typically tend to have white wines now because for whatever reason they don't do that. But this wine is just like it's got that little warmth in my belly on this cold, rainy day, and I keep looking outside and it's so gloomy, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is just really nice. And it just, yeah, it's got the, for me, and again, wine is so particular. That's the thing that I've learned. Like, you like what you like, and if you like it, that's all that really matters. But for
yep.
me, this has the perfect blend of dryness but full bodiedness. Like it's got a lot of different tastes and textures, but it's very smooth and dry. So, cheers.
Cheers. Oh, wait, here we go.
Cheers.
I love you more at the end. I win.
Ha ha ha. Hey, get a wine glass. Join the whole damn bottles here.
I, actually, that's one of the things, just so everybody knows, even if you talk to people who are not HR professionals, I have so many people that I've talked to recently who are super, super excited when I tell them about what Julie and I do, including, again, of course, my mama wants to support us. So I will, next time I'm up here, we'll have classes to drink out of because she is going to join it, just because she thinks that, it's pretty cool what we do. So I hope
And
y'all feel the same
also,
way.
yes, and also for all of you out there, it's a business expense because we are giving
Yeah.
you we are talking about business related topics and we are giving you advice and tips and tricks and all the good things, all the stats. So it is 100% a business expense. And if you own your own business, it's a write-off. So just
Yeah.
saying, join us on
It's a win-win.
Patreon. We've got three different tiers. We also have a free membership, so no worries there. We're just happy to have you, but you get various things with each tier. And the top tier, you get a wine with HR wine glass. And we would love to have you, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. So,
Yeah.
thank you again for joining us, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.